You pull into the local driving range parking lot with 45 minutes of freedom to go hit some golf balls. You walk inside and purchase a large bucket, and you walk to the nearest stall, dump the balls on the ground, look out at the vastness of this driving range, and think to yourself, I have no idea what to practice. You don't know how to practice because no one ever taught you how to figure that out. I mean, think about that for a second. You might have spent hundreds of dollars on lessons or spent thousands of hours scrolling Instagram and GolfWorks and YouTube looking for the newest tip that's going to actually help you get better at golf and score lower when you do go play golf. Listen, a little off-script moment here. I lived in that for a long time, searching Instagram, I was a huge GolfWorks fan, just on there trying to find the newest thing that would help me fix either my swing or help me with my scoring that I hadn't even identified what the real problem was. I was just kind of searching the medicine cabinet for whatever had the prettiest label. And when I finally looked into the science of motor learning, the one pattern that continued to emerge was that the people who improved the most were not the ones that practiced the most, but the ones that practiced the right things in the right order. So for your practice sessions to become productive towards you scoring lower on the weekend, just answer these 3 simple questions and you're gonna have a lot more clarity going into that medium bucket with that 45 minutes. Question 1, where are you losing strokes? And not where you think you're losing strokes, but where the numbers tell you that you are. Here's an example. A golfer may say that their short game is terrible and that's what's costing them the most strokes. But if we take a look at the data, you'll see that a 15 handicap hits 5 greens around and then gets up and down about 25% of the time, whereas a tour player gets up and down about 60% of the time. So, oh my gosh, a 35% gap. Well, in reality, by only hitting 5 greens around, you're losing the majority of your shots on approach. And even potentially you're losing shots off the tee because maybe you're not giving yourself a clean second shot. That golfer may be looking at their short game as their biggest liability and spending the majority of their time practicing that, when in reality they could just get significantly better by keeping the ball in play off the tee and hitting more greens or hitting it closer to more greens. I'd argue there's 2 ways to keep relatively accurate and clean data. Number 1 is a little bit more complex, and that's keeping strokes gained. Now, there's a ton of systems out there that'll do that for you. We're coming out with a system that'll do that for you. That pick your poison there. But number 2 is just 4 simple stats. How many tee shots did you hit in play that gave you a clean second shot at the green? What was your scoring average inside of 150 yards? When you had chip shots, how often were those chip shots getting inside of 20 feet? And finally, for putting, keep track of how many putts it takes you to get it in the hole from outside of 30 feet and inside of 8 feet. That should give you a good idea of what part of your game is costing you the most strokes, and that'll allow you to take a look at those things a little bit more in depth when you're practicing. Question number 2 when building out this practice plan is obviously, how much time do you have? Time is a massive constraint. In theory, if we all had 8 hours a day, we could work on everything, but that's not reality. A lot of us have 9-to-5 jobs, and we want to continue getting better at golf, so we've got to use that time wisely. And the more limited that your practice time is, the more in-depth each session has to be on one problem. An example would be like if you went to a trainer and said, I want to get stronger. And they said, okay, great. You've got limited time, 4 times a week. So we're going to do 1 set of everything each time that you come in. You'd be a little bit confused. Like, well, aren't I supposed to kind of like wear myself out in each specific area so that it continues to build itself up? This doesn't seem like it's really focusing on anything. Kind of the same deal. If you just spend 5 minutes on everything when you go to the range as opposed to 20 minutes in depth on hitting 1 shot with your driver, for example, you're going to get significantly better at the big problems and understand how to pull the big levers if you go in depth on them, as opposed to just barely scratching the surface. Now, part of how you spend your time is also related to question 3, which is what facilities do I have regular access to? So if I've only got 30 minutes during the week to hit golf balls, but I've got my office here and I can hit 8-footers all day, I probably shouldn't spend my outdoor time at the range hitting 8-foot putts. I'd argue this is actually the biggest reason why you should be planning out your practice intentionally, is because you don't want to overlap the things that you could do at home or the things that you could do more regularly with the things that you don't have access to as often. I'll use myself as an example. For a while there, I was going to the simulator once a week. So when I was at home, I was actually using this thing, this weighted swing trainer that you can see. And I was using this to groove my move, kind of just keep working on grip, working on my swing, so that when I got to the simulator, I didn't necessarily have to think think about those things, I could just go work on distance control and shot shaping, the things that I can't work on inside of this 90 square foot office. By structuring your practice around your actual stats, the actual amount of time that you have, and the actual facilities you have access to, this is also going to keep you away from all those kind of tips and tricks that you're going to see on Instagram throughout the week. I'm not going to get into drills specifically here because those are different for everybody. Based on the goals that you have, maybe you're working with a swing coach right now and your primary focus is getting that swing change. Maybe your goal is scoring. You're trying to get into scoring mode, and so you're going to be doing more random practice. Maybe you're just a new golfer and you're just working on contact. I don't want to get too deep into drills because those are very, very personal. But if you answer these 3 questions, those are going to help you pick out drills that make sense a lot easier. So now we've got our plan. We head to the range. We have 45 minutes. We make the most of it. Awesome. But here's the last thing that we have to cover in order for me to be honest with you, is that this plan over time has to change, which requires you to keep track of your stats continuously, pay attention to how much time you regularly have, and be honest with yourself about the facilities that you're going to have access to regularly. This also means that you have to be willing to push yourself. In every other sport, there's progressive overload. If we go back to strength training, for example, you're going to add weight week over week over week. You should be doing the same thing. So tracking your practice is part of this. Planning it and then tracking it. Keep track of how well you're doing at the drills that you're selecting. Make sure that you're continuing to try to improve week over week. And a great practice plan that allows you to continuously get better and shoot lower and lower scores is going to continue to push you harder. Your target should get smaller, and the amount of balls that you have to successfully hit in a zone should go up. And that progression piece is the difference between a practice plan that works for 1 or 2 weeks and a practice plan that's going to work for the rest of your life. This is something that you could do right now, and hopefully you've been doing it throughout this video, is just grab a notepad or a sticky note, think through what is actually costing you shots out of one of those 4 categories: off the tee, approach, around the green, and putting. Think about how much time that you're going to have this upcoming week and what facilities you'll have access to this upcoming week. And that should make your practice plan pretty obvious. Now, here's the reality, and we kind of know this now coming off of New Year's resolution season, is that most people aren't going to do this after the first 1 or 2 times. Not because you're lazy, but because it's one more thing you got to think about on top of the rest of your life. And I completely understand this. That's exactly the point of the Play Ready Golf app, is using this framework to build practice plans that are curated to your game so you don't have to think about it when you show up to the driving range. The app is going to launch March 29th, and we're going to have a 2-week window with founders level pricing. So you can get in, do a week-long trial, see the practice plans, and then decide if you want to pull the trigger or not. In the meantime, if you want to keep those 4 simple stats that we talked about earlier in the video, I've got a link down below. It's completely free. Just tell me where to send it, and I'll talk to you next time.